Everyone is repeating the same story right now. It's in articles. It's on podcasts. It's all over TikTok. Even researchers are echoing it. The message? Women are walking away from relationships in record numbers because men aren't good enough anymore. Men don't communicate. Men don't help at home. Men don't show up emotionally. So, women are finally choosing themselves, choosing freedom, choosing better lives. Sound empowering, right? There's just one problem. The happy ending never seems to arrive. Because if leaving was a solution, the women who left should be thriving, glowing, free, grateful. But that's not what's happening. Months later, still unhappy. Years later, still restless. Different life, same feeling. The relationship ended. The dissatisfaction didn't. And that raises a question almost nobody wants to ask. What if the man was never the real problem? What if the thing they were trying to escape was never in the relationship to begin with? Let's talk about it. If he was the problem, why didn't leaving fix it? Let's start with a question nobody likes asking. If he was the problem, why didn't leaving him to fix it? In many Western countries, women initiate the majority of divorces. Most long-term breakups also initiated by women. And here's what makes it interesting. A large number of these relationships weren't abusive. There was no cheating scandal, no violence, no explosive betrayal, just something quieter, a feeling, a low-grade dissatisfaction, a sense that something was missing, a whisper in the back of the mind. This can't be it. There has to be more than this. The explanation we're given is simple. Men stopped trying. Men became complacent. Men don't communicate. Men don't carry their emotional weight. And sometimes, that's true. Some men do become passive. Some relationships do drift out of balance. But here's where the logic gets uncomfortable. If men were the central source of the dissatisfaction, and women remove the men, shouldn't the dissatisfaction disappear? If you take painkillers, the headache fades. If you leave a job that makes you miserable, relief follows. So if you leave an unfulfilling relationship, shouldn't peace show up? And yet, for many, it doesn't. The relationship ends. The restlessness stays. It shows up at work, in friendships, in dating, in mental health, different environment, same underlying feeling. At that point, you have to ask, was the diagnosis wrong? The misdiagnosis problem. Imagine a child labeled disruptive at school. The teacher says it's ADHD. But at home, the child can focus for hours on books, on games, on hobbies. Suddenly, the diagnosis doesn't look so certain. Because if the issue were truly internal and universal, it would show up everywhere, not just in one classroom. Now apply that logic here. If dissatisfaction were caused primarily by men, removing men should reduce it. But when the dissatisfaction spreads into every other area of life, that suggests something deeper is happening, not external, internal. The expectation gap no one talks about. Now we get to the uncomfortable part. Modern women are raised with a promise that no generation before them received. You can have everything. A meaningful career, a passionate love life, financial independence, emotional fulfillment, personal growth, adventure, security. And your partner? He should be emotionally intelligent, financially stable, attractive, supportive, ambitious, funny, deep, loyal, present, romantic, confident, vulnerable but not weak, strong but not controlling. He should be your best friend, your therapist, your intellectual equal, your protector, your co-parent, your biggest fan. That's not a partner. That's a custom-built fantasy. And here's the trap. Women are told that accepting less than this is settling. That compromise equals self-betrayal. That if he doesn't check every box, you deserve better. So when a real man, flawed, human, imperfect, inevitably falls short. It doesn't feel normal. It feels unacceptable. Not abuse, not cruelty, just imperfection. And imperfection now feels like proof that something is wrong. So she leaves, not because he was terrible, but because he wasn't extraordinary. And then comes reality. The emotionally expressive man lacks ambition. The financially successful man lacks warmth. The charismatic man doesn't want kids. The stable, responsible man lacks spark. Every option is a trade-off. But now there's no shared history. No inside jokes. No built resilience. No foundation built over years. Just options. And options always look better from a distance. Until you choose one. Then it's just another human being. With flaws. Again. And that's when the quiet question returns. Was he really the problem? Or was the expectation impossible from the beginning? The equation nobody talks about. Here's a truth that sounds simple, but explains almost everything. Satisfaction equals reality minus expectations. That's it. Not romance. Not destiny. Not compatibility quizzes. Expectations versus what actually happens. When expectations are grounded, reality can surprise you in a good way. When expectations are sky high, reality almost always disappoints. And this is where a quiet difference often shows up. Many men tend to ask practical questions about relationships. Are we okay most days? Can we solve problems together? Does this life function? That doesn't make them deeper. It doesn't make them better. But it does make them more tolerant of imperfection. Many women, on the other hand, are taught to ask emotional questions. Does this feel amazing? Does this feel aligned with who I'm meant to be? Is this love extraordinary? And when extraordinary becomes a baseline, ordinary starts to feel like failure. Stability feels boring. Calm feels like something is missing. Peace feels like a lack of passion. So the relationship isn't judged on whether it works. It's judged on whether it feels transcendent. And nothing feels transcendent forever. A data point that makes people uncomfortable. Now here's something that doesn't fit the popular narrative. Lesbian couples have some of the highest divorce rates. Gay male couples have some of the lowest. Pause on that. If men were the primary destabilizing force in relationships, then relationships without men should be the most stable. But the data doesn't line up that way. This isn't about blame. It's not about saying one gender is the problem. It suggests something else might be influencing relationship stability. Higher emotional intensity. Higher expectations. Lower tolerance for dissatisfaction. In other words, how people process emotions and evaluate relationships may matter just as much as who they're with. That's a psychological factor, not a moral one. The question most people never ask. Here's the distinction that changes everything. Is the unhappiness situational or dispositional? Situational means this relationship is objectively unhealthy. Dispositional means I tend to feel dissatisfied in many areas of my life. If someone leaves a partner and still feels empty, changes jobs, still restless, moves cities, still unsettled, at some point you have to consider, maybe the environment isn't the only thing creating the feeling. But culturally, women are rarely encouraged to look inward first. They're told, if you're unhappy, something around you is wrong. Change it. So they change the partner, then the job, then the city, then the friend group, and sometimes the feeling stays exactly the same. That's not because they failed. It's because they were solving an internal equation with external moves. The freedom illusion. Right after a breakup, there's often a rush. Freedom feels electric. No compromises. No negotiations. No emotional labor. Just space. Choice. Autonomy. But freedom has a second phase nobody talks about. Silence gets louder. Decisions get heavier. Independence starts to feel like carrying everything alone. And that's when a strange realization creeps in. The relationship wasn't just limiting. It was stabilizing. It gave rhythm to life, shared responsibility, emotional anchoring. Without that structure, life can feel wide open and strangely ungrounded. Weather versus climate. Here's a framework that changes how you see relationships. Your daily emotions are the weather. Some days are sunny. Some days are storms. Some days you feel close. Some days you feel irritated. That's normal. That's weather. But the real question is about climate. Over years, is a relationship mostly supportive? Mostly respectful? Mostly stable? Many relationships end during emotional storms that would have passed. A bad month gets mistaken for a bad life. A rough season gets interpreted as permanent incompatibility. Some people leave during the rain, thinking the sky will never clear. The fantasy we were sold. Modern culture quietly teaches that love should feel magical. Movies end at the emotional peak. Social media shows curated romance. Friends say, never settle. But real love looks very different most of the time. It's grocery lists, bills, laundry, tired conversations, misunderstandings, routine. It's deeply human. But when you expect fireworks, a steady flame can look like it's dying. Normalcy starts to feel like disappointment. The real question no one wants to sit with. This isn't about staying in abusive or toxic situations. If there's harm, leave. If there's betrayal, leave. But many breakups aren't about danger. They're about unmet ideals. And ideals are infinite. So the real question becomes, are you trying to build a good life, or are you chasing a perfect feeling? Because one of those exists, the other doesn't. What actually creates long-term stability? The people who eventually find peace tend to make a quiet shift. They adjust expectations. They stop comparing real life to fantasy. They learn the difference between true incompatibility and normal friction. They understand happiness isn't permanent. It moves. It rises and falls. Meaning, gratitude, and acceptance become more important than constant emotional highs. And the partners who thrive long-term, they stay steady. They improve what could be improved, but they stop taking responsibility for emotional states they didn't cause. The hard truth: if someone has a strong baseline tendency toward dissatisfaction, that feeling will follow them into relationships, into careers, into cities, into lifestyles. Changing the outside world without adjusting the inside expectations creates repetition. New partner, same emptiness. New job, same restlessness. New environment, same questions at 2 a.m. Eventually, a realization waits. Maybe the peace I'm chasing isn't in a different person. Maybe it's in a different relationship with reality itself. The popular message says, if you're unhappy, he's a problem. Leave and level up. A quieter message says, if you're unhappy, pause. Look inward before you blow everything up. Make sure you're not chasing an illusion. That message won't trend. It's not dramatic, but it might save someone from trading something real for something that never actually existed. And sometimes imperfect, steady human good is rarer than the fantasy we were promised. So before you click away, pause for a second, because this conversation, it's not just about men. It's not just about women. It's about patterns we repeat without realizing, expectations we never question, and decisions that can shape the rest of our lives. If even one sentence in this video made you stop and think, if you felt a little uncomfortable, a little seen, or a little called out, that means you're growing. And that's rare. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think modern relationships are struggling because of people or because of expectations? Drop your perspective in the comments. I read them and the real conversations happen there. If this video gave you clarity, challenge your thinking, or put words to something you've been feeling but couldn't explain, hit like. It helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. And if you want more deep, honest conversations about relationships, psychology, and the truths nobody else is saying, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next video might be the one that changes how you see everything. I'll see you in the next one.